This is the plaintiff, Patricia Turner. She says she was hired by the defendant to make some quilts for him out of his favorite old t-shirts. And when he came to pick them up, he said he didn't like them and just walked out. She hasn't been paid a dime. He gave her no explanation, and she wants her do-re-mi. She's suing for $981.37, the amount she's owed. This is the defendant, Dave Jacobus. He says he made it very clear with the plaintiff that his quilts were only to have drag racing events and drag cars on it, and she put Indy cars on the thing. The quilts are very nice indeed, but she didn't do what he asked for, and for that reason he doesn't want them and isn't going to pay. He's accused of quitting on a quilter.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case in the docket, the plaintiff was hired by the defendant to make quilts out of the defendant's old t-shirts, but didn't pay. Now, the defendant says she got it all wrong. He wanted drag racing cars, and she plastered it with Indy cars. It's the case of you dragged me down.
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Patricia Turner?
Yes.
And all the pretty pieces.
Yes.
That's your business. You are suing Dave Jacobus?
Yes.
For $981.37, the cost of 3 quilts that you want him to pay for, that according to you, he requested that you have custom made.
Yes.
Tell me what's going on.
He contacted me and via email after we had met and said.
How did you two meet?
We met in a copy store.
All right. And how did you two meet?
He was telling me about his daughter was Miss Washington, and he was very proud, and I thought he was pretty neat.
Go ahead.
And then so he asked me what I did, and I handed him my business card.
And so he asked you what you did, and you told him that you make quilts for a living, and then he said?
And he said, oh, I'd really like to have some quilts made. And people say that to me all the time, and I don't pay attention. But when I got his email in the mail, I go, oh, I guess he's serious.
And he wanted to have the quilts made out of what?
His T-shirts.
T-shirts that he had from where?
From the races that he went to.
Because you do what for a living?
I own a collision repair shop.
Which does what?
Repairs cars.
Okay. Do you paint race cars?
At times, yes. We have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you had all these T-shirts that came from what events?
Drag racing events only.
Okay. You don't drag race, right?
No, I have.
Okay.
Yes, I have drag raced. Yes.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
When was the last time?
Oh, about 5 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's perilously close to today.
Couldn't fit into my budget no more.
Couldn't fit into your budget. Is it expensive?
Yes, very expensive.
So, it sounds a little dangerous.
Yeah.
So you had all these T-shirts, and you decided that you wanted her to make a quilt out of them?
Right.
All right. And did you folks have any contract in writing about specifications about how much it would cost and what colors it would be, what kind of material, which T-shirts would be used? How many T-shirts did you have?
I'm not sure. I thought there was about 30 there that I bought at events.
All right.
There was a lot of T-shirts.
Okay. So was there any discussion about any of that?
Well, he asked me approximately how much it would cost, and I said between $200 and $500.
Okay. And do you have an email that records that discussion?
Yes.
May I see that?
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, now what he says in the email, the first email where he reaches out to you in March of last year, he says, I met you in Vancouver. I mentioned I had a bunch of drag racing shirts. I want to make a quilt. I don't know where to start. You said you had a friend that's good with this. What does that mean? I thought you were the quilt maker.
I sewed the top piece to the bottom piece and with stuff in between.
Okay.
And my friend Pam sews the pieces together.
So what happens? What ends up happening? Well, first of all, do you settle on a price, Ms. Turner?
I didn't.
See, typically, let me tell you how it's done.
Okay.
I shop for something, you tell me the price, I decide if I want it, I buy it. Both sides know what's going on. Like, that's not how it worked out here?
Well, I said it was between $200 and $500 a quilt.
And that was good enough for you to hand over T-shirts and have them start working on it?
No.
Well, then why did you?
I don't know.
Most people try to make sure that they agree on a price before they put themselves out like this. Okay. But you guys didn't, so let's see where it takes us.
Does it sound cool to use, to make a quilt out of drag racing T-shirts?
Of course, if you're into cars, I would love it. I love cars, and I'd love to have a quilt made out of cars.
Kind of old T-shirts, what do you think?
I think it's awesome.
I think it's awesome too. What do you think? I want to go to a woman just because I don't know why I'm stereotyping here. What do you think?
I think it's pretty disgusting. I wouldn't want to use.
Oh my God, I think it's so awesome. I think it's so awesome going inside the courtroom.
So now, how long does it take you to complete the work?
Probably a week per
A
quilt.
week?
Per quilt, yeah.
Oh, per quilt, I was going to say, man.
It takes me about a week to get them put together.
goodness.
You have to understand.
Wait, turn it upside down. Right.
I work with the t-shirts. I have to stabilize those t-shirts, and then I have to work in the fabrics around it. It's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together.
Oh my goodness. Okay, wait a second. So these are the t-shirts, but they're not the actual t-shirts.
They are the actual t-shirts.
They are the actual t-shirts.
Yes.
And then, I don't even see a seam. Okay, so then there are actually stars.
That part comes later. I put the t-shirt.
How do you do that?
And I have a big machine that.
You have a machine that does that.
She has the machine.
All right, so then your part is sewing these to the blue fabric, right? And these little things, I guess, that you added in.
Yeah.
And that's the part you don't like, these 4 Indy cars?
Absolutely.
Okay, was there ever a discussion about Indy cars?
Yes, there was a discussion of, she talked about putting checkered flags on it, and I said, no, just drag racing cars only, and no checkered flags.
Okay, is that accurate?
Well, the only thing I remember is he said no checkered flags.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, do you remember him saying anything about Indy cars versus other cars versus drag racing car? I don't even know if apparently there's a difference. So, you were leaving it up to them to, I mean, couldn't you guys like maybe communicate, like say, you have email, and so couldn't you like scan a picture of what you were proposing to put in there? Couldn't you say, let me see the cars you want to put in there?
Well, I just figured that they were the cars that were on the t-shirts because he said he wanted the quilts made out of his t-shirts. So
Are those the cars that are on his t-shirts?
No, I had put them on there and.
Right, this is something that was added in.
Yes.
Okay, now let me see, this is magnificent, by the way. All right, let me see this one.
None of those have that on there.
Right. Oh my goodness, and this one's all fuzzy in the back.
Well, he said he wanted to wrap up on them to keep warm, and so I put fleece on the back of one, and then I put a cotton on
And then
the
this
back of
one's
another.
signed. This is a t-shirt that's signed?
I tried to incorporate all of the shirts that had signatures and the signatures so that he would have them as his souvenir.
What happened? Well, why don't you want these? I want them and they're not my t-shirts. What happened? What's the problem?
The problem was the Indy cars, the 4 Indy cars, and I'd mentioned to Patricia about the Indy cars, and she took it back and ironed these 4 patches over them that you could still see the Indy cars through, and I was okay with that, but the patches were just ironed on. They peeled right off after about a week.
Wait, so the Indy cars, I'm looking at Indy cars. I'm not looking at patches over Indy
Well,
cars.
she ironed around patches over them. I gave her back the quilt, and she
So
ironed
you
these
took the patches off of them?
Dave called me on the phone and he said that he didn't like the Indy cars. I sent him the pictures. I don't know if you had those.
When?
copies.
Before or after he didn't like them?
Before he had seen the quilts.
Okay, are the Indy cars in the pictures? Yeah, in this picture. Those are what you're referring to as Indy
Right,
cards?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you actually had a picture
Right.
before at some point you paid $500, right?
Right,
All right, and that $500 that you give her is after you see this picture, correct?
right.
Okay, so if there's some strong objection to the kind of car that was, and that's not just a ploy because you're in financial straits now,
Right, no.
then please tell me why you would hand over $500 and be happy still at that point when you've already seen these 4 pictures.
Well, I guess I didn't pay attention to the Indy cars. I was just awed over the quilts and what a great job they'd done on them.
It is a great job, isn't
Absolutely,
it? So there are your
absolutely.
t-shirts in full regalia. What's the real problem? Because they're beautiful. So the quilts are beautiful. Why would you not want that? Is it a financial thing?
No, absolutely not.
So what is it? What's your objection?
It's just the Indy cars, the 4 Indy cars. And I
Is there no
specifically thought-
solution to that?
They told me the last time we met them, they told me they couldn't do nothing with them.
I
And
told
she
you
wanted
I
the quilt
could.
All
back.
right,
so
let's
I
look at the emails. What do the
gave the
emails
quilt back.
reflect? Let's see. End of June, she sends you a picture of the quilts. There's no objection on your part. And then all of a sudden, the very end of June, the one I received has 4 Indy cars on it. I made the point I only wanted drag racing cars. 4 iron patches over the 4 Indy cars. I'm truly disappointed in myself for handing out $500 for that kind of work. Well, that's not what you're saying in here. $500 is a lot of money to me. And Patty right away says, I'm truly sorry for the misconception. I'm going to send the $500 back to you via snail mail. I was excited about this project, but my husband, who knows cars, tells me he understands your position. I just don't understand what the big deal is. Can't you, I mean, if you can create that out of nothing, can't you uncreate those 4 squares rather easily? So am I going to see that in an email?
Well, we met.
We verbally said that to him at our last meeting.
And you
That's not
deny
true.
that that was ever said?
Yep, that's not true. I asked them if they could fix that, and they said no, they couldn't. That's when I gave her the quilt back and left.
Why do you undo the deal like that? Why do you accept the quilt back and give him back his money? You're tucking in the emails like, I'm so sorry we had this misunderstanding. We're going to try to sell it on our own. Like you had, at some point, you're not as naive as I think you are, because you obviously had these quilts. We're willing to give him back his $500. We're willing to take back the quilt. And then you had a quilt show coming up. And I guess maybe you thought that you'd be able to sell it at the quilt show. I guess you didn't sell it at the quilt show.
Well, we couldn't sell it at the quilt show because I also sent him a self-addressed stamped envelope and 3 pieces of paper that said refused. And all I wanted to do was initial it because it was a custom. And they were signed pieces of paper, and they were his T-shirts. So I had to have something that said that he was willing to relinquish them, but he wouldn't sign it. He never did send me those papers back, and the quilt show came and went.
Okay. Here's my position on this. Those things are fabulous. And I find it hard to believe that you're not going to be able to sell them. The difficulty I have is with you a year ago, essentially this is a settlement of the case, saying give us back the quilt and we'll give you back $500. You do that. And the idea behind settlement is that it's over. And that's something that the courts want to encourage, because if 2 parties settle something, you don't want to encourage future litigation. We got enough to handle with the people who don't settle. So we don't want to be there. And I have to respect settlements. I find that to be a settlement. And I'm making very clear to you, I'm making a judicial finding that he has no claim to his T-shirts.
Okay.
Because he settled it just like you settled it. So when he turns around and in order to get $500 back, gives you a quilt, he has abandoned all rights to those T-shirts. It's settled. And as far as I am concerned, there should be absolutely 0 problem with you. Based on the testimony he's given me today, he has settled it as well as you have settled it. Feel free to put a price tag on them, make it nice and high to be worth your troubles. And my verdict in this case, because the case is settled, is for the defendant. Okay.
Well, in this case, the quilters get the short end of the stick here. Come on in here and stand next to me. Come on, stand right over here and tell me what's your feeling hearing that verdict?
Well, it's a very short trial. I don't think I was very clear on getting the judge to understand.
Could you ever charge enough to make the work and love you put into making a quilt, make it worthwhile? Could you ever charge enough?
No. No.
No, right?
No.
I mean, it takes such a long time and you charge $300 or $400. That's a week's work?
More than a week.
Yeah. Well, it's great. What are you going to do with these quilts now?
We're going to sell them.
For how much?
Approximately $500 to $600 a piece.
All right. Good luck. All right. They're very beautiful. All right. Head right down that way. Okay. All right. So come on in here. There they go. I mean, do you appreciate the expertise and the craftsmanship that goes into that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
Now, how would you feel if they were you in their shoes?
Yep. Well, I think we should have had a contract to begin with. I think would have been the best thing to do. I just didn't like the Indy cars on there. One of the main things I didn't like. So, yep.
Okay. Have a contract.
Yep.
Harvey?
Yep.
Bottom line here is you can change a contract if you want, and if you agree to new terms, those new terms are binding. But once you agree to it, you can't go back to the original terms. And that will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom right now.